I saw you under the fig tree. Amazwi la uJesu wakhuluma uNathaniel. Renewal process siwumbutho. At our lowest, uNkulunkulu uyasibona. At our lowest, uNkulunkulu ucabanga ngathi. At our lowest, uNkulunkulu ufuna ukusisusa under that fig tree asibuyisele kwiplanto ebesikuyona. Okwethu kuba singasuki lo umbutho wethu wasungulelwa khona ngo-1912. Abe emaningi ama-meetings ahlala before 1912. Kodwa ngo-1912 la kwathathwa khona a concrete resolution ukuthi thina siwumbutho wabantu sizoletha impendulo ezidingweni zabantu. Nakalokhu nje yikho lo mbutho wethu wona wodwa nabefundisi abanikwa irole ebalulekile ukuthi bazophefumula ukukhona kukaNkulunkulu. Irole yami njengo-chaplain akusikho ukukhuluma ipolitiki kanye nosopolitiki, kodwa okwami ukuhamba ngidlala indima kaNathan eBhayibhelini elithi ngaso sonke isikhathi uDavid eyoma kwi-public domain, uNathan wayeya emkhulekweni ayonxusela uDavid ukuthi noma ngabe ephini noma ngabe yo-address isizwe, kodwa kafika akhulume lokhu okuzokwenza ukuthi isizwe sihlale sinethemba lokuthi uNkulunkulu kanye naso futhi umbuso uyabacabangela kwizindingo zansuku zonke ezizinselelo. Nami ningeke ngibone kwi-public domain, kodwa kusho ukuthi angikho ngikhona ukunxusela le leadership ephambi kwethu okuyiyona yakhethwa ama-comrade ukuthi siyabethemba ubuholo nendlela abasevisa ngayo umphakathi. Nathi sikhonakho ukuzothi laba sebephumile abazi ukuthi ikhaya lisekhona, iminyango isavuliwe, amasango avuliwe, niyazi ukuthi i-fake igqame ukudlula into eyi-original. Fake igqame kakhulu ukudlula original. Nathi njengamanje ngabona nathi asi-exist, ama-fake azogqama ukwedlula thina, kodwa singasishintshi i-status sethu ngenxa yama-fake.
Yabakhona, then we'll allow the chairperson of the province to have some few remarks and then outline the purpose. Then we'll allow the media to raise questions, and then after that short questions Amanda. Then after that sizobe sivumela uDSG to respond and remark. Then the provincial secretary uzobe sesibonga bese siyamuva siya eralini.
Alliance yonke media zonke intatheli ezikhona sanibonani. You couldn't have chosen any better place. Okay. Besisanibonga impela ngokuthi nikhethe iMosamaphita region ukuthi sizohosta the 113th celebration ye-ANC ye-province. Bengeke nikhethe enye indawo engcono because this we claim ukuthi is the home of the ANC. While sikonke ngokusho kwamfundisi kusenza ukuthi sibe phansi, kodwa ukuvuka nokuvuseleleka kwe-ANC kahle kuze kuhambe kahle bekumele ukuthi size yila ekwakuthi nangekhathi kusenzima zomzabalazo uma amaqabane kade sathi uzohlangana ngana kube khona izinto ezithile ezinhle eziphuma. That is why kungabanga i-mistake bahola ukuthi uma kufonywa umbutho lo wangempela uthatha isinqumo sokuthi ufone umbutho ovikela abantu base-South Africa. Leso sinqumo sithathwe la ngoba kucaca ukuthi ubandlululo noma ngathiwa wenzeni abavuma ukugoba. And the only way was ukuthi sibathathe head on uma belwa sibe la. Kwangeyona-ke mistake ukuthi that All in Africa Conference izoba njengana yingoba isendaweni le ye-ANC.
She's been accompanied by other NEC members, some served in the NWC. We recognize their presence. Comrade Nsonto is deployed in this province. Comrade Patla is deployed. Comrade Mongameli Badlamini has been here, comes from this province and has served. Comrade National Chair, Mapeleni, Revolutionary greetings. Sanko Chair, Zwagele with your collective with the ANC. The Chair has already alluded. But we didn't go emphatic on why Moses Mapeleni at this point in time. Mokabange Politiki KwaZulu Natal, at the cornerstone, you have this region called Moses Mapeleni. A lot of things started in this region. President Madiba was arrested in this region, in this corner belt of this region. The majority of freedom fighters, I saw as we feel that a jail before Robben Island, exiled in our midst. We've been told the Konosha Plain, Babal Vuno. Thank you so much for gracing our shows. I'm just going to highlight 3 issues, but firstly, I want to thank the role that has been played by OPS by ensuring that you visit the funeral of Comrade Upeti Haba or the journalist paid. It was one of those, I'm sure those who understand in the white way regard him as a comrade. He was that, and he has served for years, and he always uses that energy. He was impartial, he would report correctly, but he understood the ground, he understood the country called South Africa. So I want to thank you, Nobala, for ensuring it was a critical stakeholder. We are glad that you went there. And in some instances, Comrade DSG, Zoya, Lomtraben's figure style, acknowledgement on its own visible. Comrade Langamanga did not talk in that funeral, but he was there, which is critical. I've already suggested Comrade PS in his honor, but it spends a memorial service. Yeah. It will be critical in the national level corner, because Balegin, antagonistic, diametrical opposed views that come from before this state. We are born followers of Corner, the Bassivas of Distort to Kulmegas. Madame Mekona, shoot a young record the out of context. So long, there is on a lighter note, but I just wanted to start there. Going to Kaluza is amongst other pillars of the ANC. The underground was also pruned thoroughly in that belt. Those who understand, but I wouldn't want to add more ingredients, Comrade DSG, but in the province of KwaZulu Natal, amongst other things on the table, if potential authority at any Vala Bank, KwaZulu Natal outlook is going to collapse. I'm glad the officials of the ANC take this matter very serious. We understand the banking sector in our country, it has been monopolized for quite some time. Go to other developed countries, each and every corner you find a bank. But in South Africa, we've got 6 main banks, and they are the ones who are contesting this space. Just imagine the province of KwaZulu Natal having that 157 billion. If you could transfer it to Itala Bank, so Ongemas Bank and Natal, a sovereign wealthy fund already, it will make an essence and a sense at the same time. But as long as we use this bank, they will tell you, even Mongabo Mayor, that your account is sporadic. Already they are profiling you in a very condescending manner. Therefore you don't qualify. It's a strategy and it's done. It's something that we must fight as revolutionaries. And the ANC stood for that ground. There was once a time President Ulthuli, Mongameli Ulthuli, in that era, what would have done if I was a prime minister? Amongst other things, is nationalizing the banks. National of mines in that time. Just Imagine that vision. Yamvumbi ngalesa sikhathi thina sicabanga into ezincane sigcina sixabana even ezingekho that fundamental. I-breakfast nature yakhona ke ngokomthetho kusuke you are breaking the fast. Assumption is that you've slept probably 8 or 9 o'clock, then the body was replenishing. Kodwa lo ngabo 2 o'clock fast break anyway bongasabulali, so uyazidela nje ukudla ngenzela ukuthi categorize breakfast nama dimensions akhona ukuthi umzimba bazoreplenish, bazokutshela odokotela ukuthi kwenzakalani. Ayaqabanga namuhla breakfast welcome to enjoy breakfast amongst other things. Moses Mapita in the province of KwaZulu Natal DSG, for the last 2 consecutive years, we've been regarded contributing positively on the issue of reducing unemployment. It's not enough, but even in the last quarter, yes, we've done fairly well with contribution. It's something that we still want to work. And if you issue unemployment, it's a ticking time bomb. It's something that the ANC has delivered a lot of things in this country, in particular when it comes to growth trajectory. But it's not yet sufficient because unabantu who are qualified, unabantu, it's strange DSG. KwaZulu Natal, abantu abebhala umatric if you 113,000. Noma bangathola amabhachela ababo 70,000 babe baningi. Kodwa iqiniso nje, kale check UKZN ithi lo nyaka uzothola abantu about 13,500 kuphela the new income. If 22,000. Usho ukuthi abantu abafundile baphasa ke South Africa yonke bazayakufunda yini? Bazayakufunda aphi? It's something that is critical at some point in time that we must talk about it. Go to the countries like Germany. Umuntu university ngoba ezoba udokotela ezoba engineer, not all these kids ungayokwenza marketing university. So initiative and vocational training has not been yet grind ubungathi indawo encane kahle kahle. It's something that is critical. Then the last point, Chair Ngwane, the province of KwaZulu Natal is still facing the consequences of the global warming. We've got disaster almost everywhere. We should figure how we do things, even at the level of planning. We must understand that it is here, and the way our municipalities are planning, the EIA kubeyenziwe ngempela ngoba uma kwenzekile abantu abakhisa ku-wetland. Sike saya ke Snow Makutwa eMusatlanta DSG kunemizi emukile sesiyambuza ubaba lo ukuthi hayi bona batshela ukuthi amanzi amsaba umuntu abaleka mase khona abantu. So ngiyafuna that mentality abantu bazi ukuthi it's not true. Bazukanjalo so le ndaba okwakha kuma-wetlands, le ndaba okwakha wetlock area, riverbed, frontland, so it's dangerous and it's risky. Siyafisa ukuthi siyazi, but we are going to expatiate on the details. The President has spoken about industrialization. It's something Mrs. Aggressively that we are going to talk to. And thank you so much, the 4th Estate, for affording us this opportunity. And recently you've been consistent in ensuring that the outlook and the coverage of what is to be done is something that is done correctly.
In the region, our leaders from the Tripartite Alliance plus SAMCO, comrades who are here, members of the media, thanks for the questions that we have raised. I think, let me first deal with the issues of the Lekgotla outcomes. The ANC went to its Lekgotla last week, where the ANC revisited our 5-year manifesto, as well as the work that has been done to implement that manifesto. We then looked at the January 8th statement of the NEC. Out of that, we then identify tasks. The Lekgotla of the ANC identifies tasks for the ANC, as well as tasks for government, so that then those comrades who are then going into a cabinet Lekgotla know exactly and understand what are the priorities as agreed upon in the ANC Lekgotla. Why am I explaining that? Is to affirm the fact that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed because our approach on the NHI, our approach on the Expropriation Act, our approach on inclusive growth still remains. What has been an issue is the how part. So Cabinet Lekgotla deals with the how part. And you have had one of our comrades, Comrade Aaron Motsoaledi, who also came out and explained that it can't only be through the fiscus, but we need to look at various other means to fund the NHI. Included in that is to look at how our different FDIs can play a role in that regard, as well as partnership. So, the outcomes of the Cabinet Lekgotla, you will hear them when the President presents the State of the Nation address. However, nothing has changed. Even in our deliberations with those that are part of the GNU, these are matters that we all differ on the interpretation, but also on the implementation. But on the national health insurance, everybody appreciates that we need to integrate our health system. We need to improve. And how it gets done, then that's a case for another day. But then I'm not going to take the job of other comrade Joe Pasha, who is paid more than me from Lutu to implement this. I think you can also have a much more detailed engagement with him. But the fact is, nothing has changed. The issue about the future of KZN, you know, the mistake that we make, many of us, is an assumption that all that we are committed to are things that are internal in the life of the ANC, and not on issues that are strategic for the future of this country. We might have taken a decision that we're meeting tomorrow to resolve on KZN, but if there has to be a Lekgotla of the ANC, let's rather do that. If there has to be any other thing, we must remind everybody that no one in the PEC of KZN or of Gauteng is expelled from the ANC. And there's no intention to chase away anyone. But the intention is renewal. Is to renew ourselves and to make sure, I always tell people I'm the only person who was nominated for 47 minutes in the conference. No one in this 113-year-old organization. But what I'm trying to raise is that we're taking time because we mean business and we don't want to hurt the movement in these processes. So that is where we are. We will come in with interventions that helps us to grow, that helps us to be better, but also that also helps us to understand KwaZulu, Natal and Gauteng in terms of its own dynamics, and then the capacity of our structures in the two provinces. So I know you work on deadlines. We have no deadline. We will deal with it at the appropriate time. So we must deal with those issues. And I really appeal also that we must give the ANC time, as to raise that it's at a snail pace. Renewing a movement is not an annual event. It's a process. And that's why we'll keep on harping on it. Harping on it every year, in and out, because the ANC has never found itself in this kind of an environment that is different from 100 years ago or 50 years ago, where you are challenged even with the proliferation of new parties in the space. Secondly, the dynamic relationship between the ANC and the people of South Africa, who do not actually just choose to not vote for the ANC and vote for somebody, but choose not to vote for anyone. The majority choose not to vote for anyone and get the ANC to be at 40%. That over 22 million, if elections if we're counting those who abstained from voting, that is the number that has won elections. That is the biggest number. So part of this renewal is to reconnect with the base. What we did yesterday, we continue to do. We engage, we go for door to door, and I'm disappointed that you guys didn't come, because I thought you would be interested not only to win elections, to hear what people of South Africa are saying when we're not coming to ask for votes. Because part of what they're communicating is that this is what we want you to do. You came, we raised issues of water, the matter has not been resolved. Kodwa ke iyazama iconciliate, because it's doing 1, 2, 3. You walk into somebody's house and then they say, you know what, I am a beneficiary of government interventions. I'm sewing, I'm doing uniform and all those things. I'm self-employed. What I need now, because the last time when you came to ask for votes, I said I need to be empowered so that then I can be the supplier of choice for our schools. And it becomes very important that these anecdotes that I'm making must be seen as part of the renewal of the ANC. I think you've been with us before, and you have seen us when there are no elections. And now you can see us even during elections and post this dramatic loss, that we still go to people. You sit in a corner, you find young people talking to us and saying, we were told that we must vote differently because the intention was to come back and sort the ANC. Ngiyayazi inkulumo yala. Angithi ukuthi cha, votanela so that then kuzolunga la. But now they understand ukuthi uqoshiwe lo muntu. Akaseselo nilunga le-ANC. But phezu kwalokho, they are the ones who worked the ground, but they are the ones who are now being taken out of the lists. It's not democracy. So the renewal of the ANC is about us continuously interacting and understanding the views and attitude of South Africans. So it's not time bound. It continues, and as you renew, there are new ones and there are new challenges, and of importance, it is about adapting to the material conditions as they prevail. So that's part of what the renewal is all about. We invited you to the launch of the foundation phase of political education, where all of us who are leaders are supposed to be going through that foundation phase. Precisely because the assumption that being elected means you know the ANC. And that if you are a member of the branch executive committee, you know the ANC. That has been the mistake we've made. Only to find that people have come for other ulterior motives. So the renewal is an ongoing thing, and the renewal is not also about paging individuals. It's about renewing. It's about that. Of course, there will be those then the processes of the organization will kick in. Changing the economic outlook. If you read the statement there, I'm happy that you are actually reading word for word that paragraph. Check, we spoke about manufacturing. We spoke about industrialization. We spoke about the informal sector, Fourthly, we spoke about intra-trade in Africa. So no one amongst all the parties in the GNU can stand up and say this is not going to happen. Investment on infrastructure in our country, making sure that we have access to markets. So it is that we are dealing with, and it is that we believe that working together with all parties in parliament, including those that are in cabinet as part of the GNU, we will continue to make things happen and change the situation. The logistics has been prioritized, and already, you know, starting from the 6th administration, there's been a rollout around the development and the improvement of our logistics infrastructure. The issue of Trump. Well, the United States of America had its own elections, and Americans voted for Trump. And there are systems at a bilateral level, because we do have a binational relationship with the United States of America. We also are represented through our different departments, and in this instance, I think the hardest seat will be the Department of Health, where in the various non-governmental organizations, especially the ones that are dealing with HIV and AIDS, as well as other communicable diseases. What we have reflected on as the ANC is that part of what we should do is to not only be the recipients of what America is saying through their president, but we should also use our diplomatic channels. And that's where we are dealing with these matters. I'm sure you have heard, and I think Comrade Joe, with your permission, a program director, can elaborate on this process and even the review that has taken place. So it's not something that we play into the gallery, but also there is also an impact on America itself. Resolutions or decisions or new regulations that come, they also have an impact not only against those that are recipients, but it is also against Americans themselves. You know, they thrive on the pharmaceutical industry, amongst others. So we need to look at that. The discussions that are ongoing on AGOA, Comrade Pakstow has been moving in and out of the United States of America, Comrade Lamula. I have, as the head of international relations, interacted with political parties in the United States of America, as well as influential individuals to engage. And this is in the best interest of our own country, but as well as in their own interest. And work is ongoing in that regard. The good thing is that we are not over-dependent, but we want to affirm the fact that we rely on each other. We rely on each other in these situations. The DRC situation, firstly, we have conveyed our condolences to the families. We have also wished those that have been injured well. Three things that are important there. Yes, the Department of Defense is the one now that will interact. Remember, our South Africans who are in the DRC are there as part of the peacekeeping mission. So there are processes within that operation where then their remains would then be handed over to the South African Defence Force and then be brought back home. There has been contact made by the Defence Force with the families, and precisely because of the protocols of the army, was, I think, part of what we sometimes forget is that there's command and control in the army. And when they are there, they are not necessarily under our command, but they are under the command of those that are responsible for the operations in the DRC. What we can affirm is the fact that we have been casualties, but they have also, the other side, have had excessive casualties. But because of the confrontation that has been ongoing, again, under the protocols of the army, no one has to be bold enough to come and give a full account until at the time when there has been a resolution to say, now let's go and explain. I know that there were people who were excited to see the white flag, and I was laughing, hey, we saw the flag. But when you check what exactly happened, it was about the other side coming to recover their own bodies. But because, again, how military operates, these are the details that do not necessarily belong to us because there are no updates like an ANC conference. We sit in a room and then the media briefing. No. So at an appropriate time, there will be a full account of what has happened, and that will be done once the remains are handed over here to us as South African. Our Commander-in-Chief, Kwamampela, will then have the right people and allow those generals to give a full verdict of what has happened and a full account. We have an interest in the DRC that there should be peace and security. All of us seated here, we know if there's instability in any part of the continent, it's us. No other country gets hard hit. And therefore, our commitment to avail ourselves in times of conflict is a national interest. Somebody was saying, they find themselves là. And they don't come through the right channels. Therefore, we must work for a better Africa where there's peace and friendship. Other issues that have to do with those conflicts and why our patriots have found themselves there, we need to deal with them. The appetite to exploit our rich mineral resources and the sowing of conflict and tension by those who thrive on a divided Africa. We need to deal with that. The other thing is to look at what Sadak has said, that there must be communication amongst the affected parties. They can't, you don't go to war and never come back and sit around the table and resolve. So this is but one of the things that is very delicate, precisely because nowadays everybody and anyone assumes that they understand and assumes that things can be attended to anyway and anyhow. In this situation, as it has happened before, we've been part of many peacekeeping missions. It is unfortunate that this occurred, and once it is appropriate, it will be explained. How did it happen that we have over 10, more than 10, 13 of our own who actually were attacked? But as of now, we are a nation in mourning. We should, all of us, await the appropriate time once the Commander-in-Chief gets a full handover of everybody and everything that occurred there, that possibly he can call a family meeting and tell the nation about what has happened. Thank you very much.
Secretary to Leadership DSG1 and all comrades and colleagues in the NEC and PEC, REC. Just to time, let me just proceed with the tasks as directed by DSG1. Firstly, on the issue of the NHI, we know that right from even when this bill now being an act was in Parliament, the DA was against. They came with a number of suggestions. We went through the legislative process. The bill was passed in the National Assembly by quite a big majority, not only through the ANC, but other parties also which supported. We went through to the NCOP as well. In the NCOP, 8 out of 9 provinces approved the NHI, and then went to the president for president assented to it in May, before the elections. So the DA has remained against. They've come with a number of proposals, but they've been reminded that this is now an act of parliament which, beyond having been passed in parliament, assented to the president, what is left now is for it to be implemented. And there are processes, including regulations, which we said even at the time when they were still very noisy during the parliamentary process, that the details will of course be in the regulations, which are also public. There will be public participation in terms of the implementation regulations. So of course they continue to raise the matter, make proposals. The key issue really, which I mean, they say they are in support of universal health coverage, but not NHI. They want a different version of universal health coverage. And the key issues really, which we know separate the rest of, I mean, the ANC and its allies from the position of the DA, it's really about protection of the business aspect of health services. Now, the NHI Act, it's not against a provision of health services also by private providers. It actually says that we must bring together both the public and the private, but make sure that it's one system in terms of, therefore, instead of private providers being paid differently, the same kind of fund must be able to reimburse those who are providing private services. The fund must procure services from the private, but also reimburse also the public sector. Make sure that, you know, so those are the things. But in terms of going forward, we are proceeding as, you know, the regulations are in preparation, and once they are ready, once the regulations are ready, they will be published for public comment and public participation. We are required in terms of the National Health Act to publish regulations for a period of 3 months, in which period then everybody can comment, and then those comments have to be considered. But it must be comments which, you know, we consider, I mean, they must not be against the actual act. It must be in terms of details of implementation. So that's really where we are. And I mean, through the cabinet systems of the clusters, they will be, when the regulations are published on various aspects, they will be debated even in those clusters. They will be presented in those cabinet clusters, but also in terms of the public. So that's really where we are. Of course, there are other parties which have taken government to court. We have the Solidarity, you know, the union called Solidarity. They have taken us to court. We also have the Board of Healthcare Funders, which is an association of various medical schemes, which has taken us to court. A few days ago, the Hospital Association of South Africa, HASA, also announced that they are also going to take us to court. This is the Association of the Private Hospitals. So those are legal issues. They will be argued. I mean, we have been in court before with Solidarity when they challenged why and said that we're preempting the passing of the act when we established a branch in the department to drive the preparation for the NHI. Then they took us to court to say that we're preempting because the act at that time was not yet passed. But the court agreed with us, the High Court agreed with us that creating a branch of a department does not require to wait for an act, because this is a branch to implement a policy which was approved by cabinet. So we've been there before. So we're also preparing for this, the main one now, which is actually challenging the act. But in the meantime, preparations are there to make sure that all the processes are followed, and the details then, as I've said, will be discussed through the public participation and through the various structures. On the US foreign aid suspension, it's quite unfortunate because what the Trump administration is wanting to do is to reverse a very long relationship. Incidentally, what is quite interesting, the main funding which we've been working with the US on, what is called the presidential emergency funds against HIV and AIDS, was actually initiated by a Republican president in 2003, George Bush Jr. So it was a Republican-led initiative to work with the rest of the world to fight against HIV, AIDS, and also TB and malaria. So, as you'll be aware, subsequently they issued another decision to say they are waiving the suspension of the activities. Of course, it will cause, so they said now while they are reviewing over 90 days, they are now waiving the suspension, so they are reinstating the support for the 90 days. Then they will keep on check, they will, amongst other things, of course, the interesting thing is that they have not formally communicated with the government. They just issued and then gave instructions to the service providers who are contracted to work with us. We don't have a letter from the US administration to government. We have a structure where we work with the US. Comrade Domaku will remember, we came here in Maritzburg to sign a memorandum of agreement. Where were we? You hosted us with the US ambassador here in Maritzburg. I think we're also at Kaluza. We said Kaluza. Yeah, we came there to formally sign, to actually elevate it from just an ordinary agreement to a formal memorandum of agreement with the US government in 2023. We elevated that. So we went directly with the American embassy in terms of all this. We've got protocols. They've never, so when Trump came in, they just issued public statements, gave an instruction. Equally so, they have now withdrawn that instruction to say the work must continue. But the impact, if later on they reinstate the suspension or cancel the whole relationship, it will destabilize. It will destabilize. How much are we receiving? They want to suspend a contract of, we currently have 2024-25, which is $450 million US. But this time we're also, in the past it used to be 1 year, and then they then agreed that it will be 2 years. So we actually have a 2-year agreement currently, which was supposed to go from 2025, 2026, another $450 million US. In rands, that's about $7 billion. But that doesn't come into the health department's budget. It goes directly into programs. There's various service providers who are contracted, who are providing services. Very important. So I mean, of course, including also employment of staff, as you have had Comrade Aaron, I think, responding, that they contribute about 17% of our HIV program in terms of services on the ground. That's around 15,000 employees who are directly working on the ground. Some of them are attached to our own clinics, others are working in other standalone services. So it will have, if ultimately they proceed and cancel the agreement, the question is, it's a contract. We've signed the contract. But what it means, you see, Trump doesn't recognize even formal international agreements. So it's possible that by that decree, say presidential what, we can also withdraw from every contract. So what we will have to do is to reprioritize. You can't, we will not be in a position to can say they've withdrawn about 7 billion rand a year, so Treasury must give us 7 billion. There are some of the areas where we could reorganize. We will need additional assistance to continue the fight against HIV and AIDS, but some of the services can be reorganized, but it will definitely have an impact. We're hoping that ultimately they will change their minds, because this, as other aspects have indicated, the benefit is not only to the countries which are receiving the support, even to diseases don't know boundaries. They have not learned from COVID that infectious diseases don't know boundaries. But we are hoping that they will change their minds. If not, we'll have to reorganize ourselves and make sure that maybe with other partners, have to make sure that we proceed, make sure that the fight against HIV, AIDS and other infectious disease continue until we can be victorious in that respect. Thank you very much.
No points. Well, thanks very much. I think comrades and friends have been greeted, and only the exception is comrades from the MK Military War Veterans joined us, Comrade Natal and Treasurer Mayor Profile. And one case of MTV that has arrived. And we really wish to thank all of you, especially the members of the National Working Committee, Comrade Pesane, Comrade Joe, members of the ABC, Comrade Mamu Bata, members of the PWC, PC that are here, Mayor of Ugudlovu, Comrade Original Chair, Mayor of the Seat of Choice, the DSG, the Alliance, I will have a province in regards to Sepeto Waduma. Uhlalo wekhosapho kuduma ukhonfina uyiklinto kuduma sesibalekela nje bengatshintshi province kuthiwa iduma province alliance sakho community uDube siyabanga uDube ukuthi ufike eqala ngithi hayi bengiqashe apho ngifike eqala akekho mhlanga isikhathi uDube hoza unobhala wamakomanisi sekela nobhala angashawuthini sekela nobhala siyabonga nemedia yonke efikile nama-regions kumbonile nobhala wasemusadladla comrade uKing Madana uzibiza ngoKing ke-Python umuntu uyena isilo salapha sasemthonjaneni nalwa naphambi koqambane bafuna kuvuselele umkhosi bawo siyabonga simasuka-ke la sizo umjuqu angibonanga mntobane bamgambi awu mina zikwazi impilo abantoni hawu ngixolele mfowethu siyabonga sibonge kakhulu ngokukhethekileyo umbishop wethu ubaba ulivuno kulalo mthandazo wakhe awawuthandaza athandaza nomfundisi. Sibonge nje bonke abantu ababekhona. Masisuka ke la sizawugeza izandla lapha kula matafula besiwabamba. Sigeza izandla lapha benizoqala le tafula yilona elizogeza izandla. Usicela nobhala asikafiki nekulinganele 100%. Uzoqala le tafula ikhawulethi lonke
Sabunzimeni Oliver Tambo ba